Hi kids, how's it going? So, an online friend requested recently for me to do card readings regarding the current ongoing events, as it were, in this nation. Are y'all excited? It's our first evident hard coup d'etat in this free, democratic, freedom loving, liberty loving nation. Yes! It's our first coup d'etat. I'm so excited. By the way, I shall be considering everything I am drinking while I'm doing this. It's the Shiner Bock. Shiner Bock is a domestic to Texas beer that if you walk into any bar in Texas, this will be on tap. It's a very popular average beer here in Texas. Yes, relatively cheap because it is a domestic beer. It is very solid, smooth taste. Not too fruity, not too nutty, not too spicy. Just a very smooth, medium dark beer. So I did drink one can before I did this reading, so we'll see how it goes. I don't know. But yes, the first hard coup d'etat, which there are several primary characteristics of a hard coup d'etat within what is generally referred to as a banana republic, which, as I've stated on Tumblr, when I worked at the Gap upper middle class store Banana Republic, people would ask me in curiosity, now why would they name a brand that? And of course, I'm a total asshole and a jerk, and I relish in popping people's balloons and the delusions they live within. And I said, well, it's secretly what our country is. We're living in a banana republic. It's just that we do not deal in potassium-rich, sugary bananas and refined carbs. We deal in debt from China. Yes. So at this point, we are, as a nation, the ghetto crack whore sex slave spiritually and psychologically on every level of China right now. We are, it just is what it is. I mean, with the hard coup d'etat occurring, it's kind of the proverbial emperor walking around naked without his clothes. And for those who have eyes to see, it is now very evident. It's being made all too evident, as it were. So, what am I getting at? So, yeah, hard coup d'etat characteristics is the high military presence, boots on the ground, to ensure that a corrupt politician that may even be entirely inept, as we well know Joe Biden is, he cannot even barely string coherent sentences at a second grade literacy level together in front of cameras. So that is another characteristic of a banana republic, is it's almost like a joke, as kind of a backhanded insult to the people that they're lording over, that not only is it a hard coup d'etat, but the military strategically implants a vegetable as your leader, and you just have to take it. You have to worship this vegetable. You have to idolize this vegetable. You have to romanticize this vegetable that loves sniffing and groping small children and more behind closed doors, of course, as QBs and even the people that predate QBs, like myself, are a little too well aware, even though it's not the full details of how these people operate. All that aside, when I do card readings for the nation, it is for everyone. It's for the Democrats, the hippies, the hipsters, the NPCs, the spooks. Oh wait, the spooks are transnational. The spooks are already dead to the world. Oh yeah, the spooks, the spooks. It's all races, it's all genders, it's all sexes, et al. So when I read for the nation, I'm reading for the unconscious underlying themes, archetypes, and moods and psychological functions of the people, even though arguably there's no nation now. It is the slovenly ghetto crack whore prostitute of China, spiritually. That's where we are now. She has a little fight in her. We may like get a nice little punch in the teeth to these people, possibly on a certain level, but I'm not quite sure about that. But all that aside, I'll go ahead and read, since I did have a friend request a reading for this, and I have the cards laid out. They're all laid out on the bed. They're laid out on the desk. I don't know if that filmed well at all, but I have it laid out so instead of this nonsense of seeing the cards and shots of my leg and all this weird stuff, since all I got's a phone, we're just going to go ahead and pull from here. So let's see. Let me get one more. Get one more sip over here. Wow, your girl is letting loose. Don't you love the setup with the awful lighting and the cheap blinds? For all you know, I could still have my inheritance as a Kirk that ran with the Reynolds for tobacco, and I could be in an underground bunker as we speak. You don't know. You just don't know with people on the internet. Anyway, so thematically, okay, we're doing a first card pull for America. Let's see, what are we gonna get? Give me a card pull for America. Let's see. Empowerment. Extremely vague and ambiguous, is it not? Empowerment. Frequency of empowerment supports our ability to show up fully and completely, uniting us with others in the deep trust that we are connected through the same source. Capitalized. This is New Age speak, so they're going to call the universe God, even though that's total garbage. The universe is the dwelling of created matter. It's a 3D realm. It is not the creator. It's not divinity, but this is one of those decks, of course. It's a New Age. Let's see what else we got here. What other card we got going here? We got the throat chakra, which is I used to go to a New Age store with my mother back in my teenage years, periodically every few years. They did have an aura camera. And of course, back then with these things, I was like, sure, let's give it a try. Let's see what it reveals. And I kid you not, every few years, about maybe 3 or 4 times, whenever I was in front of the camera, I not only had an orange aura, but the chakra that was the most active was the throat chakra. And my mother is a licensed Reiki master. And as she notes, the blue chakra is about the question of the degree of one's freedom of creative expression, as well as vocal and verbal expression, and your ability to find soul tribe members, typically, who will communicate with that free expression, or are receptive to it at least, and also very understanding of it. So with empowerment and the throat chakra for the nation, I think, like Tim Kelly and others were mentioning, with the polarization of the nation and its people, especially on the internet, there have been creation of not only echo chambers, but internet cul-de-sacs, as it were. So now everyone, in response to the very blatant boots on the ground hard coup d'etat strategy that is very much underway, everyone is scattering like pests and vermin to their own little cul-de-sac soul tribe, where they will, because they are powerless, essentially, where they get that sense of empowerment is just by vocalizing. It's almost like you're so driven by anxiety and fear, you're either going to make jokes about it, such as memes, which is so prevalent regardless of the online community, or you're going to be running theories and making all sorts of rationalities of why this is happening and what theory, and those debates are very active right now. And also what comes to mind is supposedly during this pandemic and lockdown, one of the growing jobs and careers is shit that I'm doing now, just yammering on camera, podcasting, filming videos, just yammering away. So it's an interesting, it's kind of a soft strategy in warfare that is very characteristic of a nation such as ours, which is so info glutted. As I can't think of the name. There was one scholar that talked about that we are such a nation of information glut, and the ways in which it's presented on TV and news especially is highly schizophrenic in nature. So it's kind of a crazy making type of deal. It's very, what comes to mind is the image of, tellingly, the narrator from the Notes from the Underground by Dostoevsky, who was an intelligent male narrator in the midst of Soviet Russia and communism. And if you study, of course, you know that when communism's in place, people pretend to work and they pretend to be paid with very little jobs. And unfortunately, this was a character who's highly intelligent and cannot develop his talents, can't develop his intellect, can't freely express himself. So he's literally, for all intents and purposes, sitting away in a corner, twiddling his thumbs and going insane. And that's what the entire narration is. And it's kind of like a vocalization to maintain some form of identity with oneself, and also that empowerment. I guess when a society falls apart before everyone's going at each other's jugular and cannibalizing each other for nourishment, it's a lot of yammering and a lot of vocalization, probably rooted with collective anxiety at the bottom, because what are we to say? This has been years in the making, decades in the making up to this moment for this to happen. A lot of intelligence, black ops, and what have you leading up to this moment, and especially the people with Q and a lot of Trump people, they came on the bandwagon of conspiracy theorists just a few years ago. Whereas there have been people, for decades blowing the whistle, but part of the reason there is this coup d'etat is that there's way too many of us now. It's some 75 million people, and especially if they were QBs, then they have just a little morsel of that conspiracy theory info that people have been discussing for decades. So what I'm getting at is that it's almost like masses of people are segregating to their little soul tribes, which are internet cul-de-sacs, forums, echo chambers, and they're just probably lots of memes, a lot of rationalizing. I don't think there's probably much planning by which of military action or insurrection, despite what the mainstream media is doing, because I honestly, it's rather jaded and pessimistic, but I think a lot of people are totally just caught off guard by what's happening. It was the timing was the timing was awful for all this stuff. Maybe if more Americans were privy to things and more willing to study conspiracy theories, maybe 2 or 3 decades previous, perhaps we would have more of a solid foundation, but unfortunately, I don't get that sense. I think we're all kind of like that little narrator in the Notes from the Underground and Communist State, where they're just kind of circumventing amongst each other and going insane, essentially. And it's a way to very physically get rid of anxiety. And it's an echo chamber, so people are patting you on the back. I still follow tarot readers that were QBs that are still saying, oh yes, it's a 5D chess move and trust the plan, and they buy into this new age notion of, oh, if you're ever too realistic about things and it seems rather dire and death is looking you in the face, and oh, that's just negative, and it's all this just It's stupid. It's beyond stupid. But yeah, I'll pull one more from this deck. Let's see. Coherence. Frequency of coherence. Pretty little mandala. Supports our ability to harmonize the frequency of the heart with the frequency of the mind for an optimal ability to create the reality that we desire. Okay, so maybe backtrack that. Maybe there are people that realize how dire things are. I would hope so, with a blatant hard coup d'etat underway. But I think so. I think communities of people are probably strategizing now as we speak. It's very serious. It's not a joke. There is no America at this point. America forever was a spirit that dwelt within the hearts of the patriots. So in that sense, and even then, it's something of a nostalgic memory to these people. And even then, if you were to study conspiracy theory and alternative history, you know that much of the pivotal events that occurred with this nation, and this nation in conjunction with other developing nations, has a lot of dynamics and elements to it that the mainstream doesn't reveal. However, that's irrelevant, because similar to the Holy Spirit within the Bible, who acts as a sword that cuts through all the sinews and the muscles and the veins and the tissue, a patriot spirit only needs that vision of the liberty, the freedom, those higher transcendental values, and the historical undertakings and unfoldings of that nation since its creation with that spirit is irrelevant. I mean, as long as we have that patriot spirit, maybe there's a chance. Maybe there's that one shot of the sword moving like the Holy Spirit that will cut that pivotal sinew of the enemy, and at which point, like David with Goliath, it will all come tumbling to the ground, to the total shock of both sides. But hey, I'll say this much. If you want to run your mouths and you want to sit in powwow groups on the internet and internet cul-de-sacs and you're patriots, you better have prayer groups, because this, as a lot of people already know, this is a spiritual warfare. It's about the prince of the world versus Christ, which we already know Christ is king. And that the demons and all these people that operate as willing DID meat puppets to do what they do as spooks have already lost the game, and they're just sore losers. But hey, the Christian thing to do is to fight. And the number one way to fight, and the number one strategy internally, will be prayer. So we better get on. If we're going to be operating that throat chakra into overdrive for empowerment, it better be through prayer. It better not be through silly little QB conspiracy theories and rationalities of how things operate and within what and with what strategies. Because as it's been made blatantly clear, that was something of like an intellectual wanking honeypot. Honeypot's usually physically, sensually wanking. QB, honeypot in the sense of intellectual, mental wanking. So we gotta stop that. It has to stop right now. Let's see, one more. I'll pull 4. Soul Time, which is an introspective card. Soul Time is introspective. So the frequency of Soul Time asks us to allow the possibility of a new reality to emerge, one that embraces the concept that while the corporal body is mortal, the soul is timeless, limitless, and infinite. Yeah, with a high consumerist civilization like that, the body is all it, you know? Take me, for example. I'm a little too fixated on my makeup and my hair now, aren't I? Whereas most people are going to look me in the face, I already know this, and tell me you're one of the ugliest people I've ever seen in my life, and I would only do you if you had a bag over your head. Yeah, well, so much for dealing and all that nonsense, because here we all are now, probably about to be gathered in FEMA camps, and we can argue about who's the one out of the tens or whatevers as they lead us off to guillotine our heads off. So, I mean, yeah. So soul time, a lot of deep introspection I think is occurring within this nation, but especially with patriots. And God, I hope it's with Cubies, because man, were they led like lemmings into that intellectual mental wank honeypot that was that entire op, unfortunately. And like most ops, the bait was partial truths. Like we know, if you have so much had your little psychic intuitive antennae floating above the deep dark waters that is this underworld of the spooks and elders and whatever they want to call themselves or whatever, you realize that the currency of how they go about doing things is quite literally the blood and bodies of children and their souls as well on an occult level. So we know that much, and of course they baited us with that partial truth, and people just rushed right in to that honeypot, unfortunately. But with Soul Time, I think we've all been rather impulsive. We were a little too over-enthused with Trump, who I personally believe did not lead the charge. I think for the most part he was mirroring his constituents' enthusiasm and power for the most part. He was a mere figurehead, but he was an exceptionally good one. However, you have to ask, with Soul Time especially, deeply introspect with what cleverness and wits about you have, to what ends he was mirroring these things. And I think a lot of people are doing that, and a lot of it's being communicated, through videos like such as myself and other card readers, echo chambers on the internet, podcasters, things like that. So yeah. We're a country whose birth chart is it's either the ascendant, I've heard, is either on Gemini, which is what I've studied. Other people mention Scorpio. With these cards, it very much makes me think of Gemini, because Geminis are very sociable. They love to freely communicate. They love communication. It's kind of a love style. If you can verbally, intellectually meet them in conversation, be clever, be witty. So this very much looks, if it's true that our country is ascendant Gemini, this is not shocking polls right now. So it looks like there's a lot of introspection amongst American people. There is a lot of rationalizing of what things are and what they will be and what they actually were in the past, probably as a denial mechanism, because we are in the midst of a hard coup d'etat strategy, which is the most open expression and show of power in statecraft. I mean, they may as well be rounding us up tomorrow and just, I don't know what, like just shooting us, lining us against the walls. I don't know. I think they're going to be a little more efficient with that, but I mean, I think the Americans on an instinctual, intuitive level sense that already. That image is floating through their minds. So we're dealing a lot of verbal communication and rationalization, theorizing of what's going on. And I'm here to say, just start praying, because this is a spiritual warfare. Like, I recently got this icon. It's Orthodox. Saint Michael. Pray for Saint Michael and his hierarchy of angels beneath him, the protectors of the tribe of Israel. Pray for their intercession and for them to supernaturally guard Israel, which, it's a whole other video, but that is one thing you can do. The question of intercession and praying directly to Christ is a whole other topic, but I do recommend, with all spiritual warfare, definitely Michael and the hierarchies beneath him, since, of course, those were the angels that went against the fallen angels and plunged them into this world that they so hate and they're such sore loser crybabies about. So if Christians were to pray for the intercession and the presence of Michael and his angelic army, all these demons and their meat puppets would be pissing in their pants. So that's my suggestion for that. And then let's see, archetype reading. Child nature. And so let's see. Friendship with animals, communication with nature spirits as the light attribute. The shadow attribute is a tendency to abuse animals, people, and the environment. Oh. Do you have to say it with the shadow attribute? Abusing people? A mixture of abuse of creation? Oh, it's a hard coup d'etat strategy, the most open and blatant power strategy. Yeah, it's kind of like they're saying, oh, the animals that are the goyim are acting up, and we gotta corral them with guns and hard metal and gas and because they're humanoid, but they're goyim, they're animals, they're just meat to be eaten. So that's what comes to mind with this. And that would be, this is very much the energy going on right now. You have to be careful with, that's, just recognize the humanity in others. We're highly polarized, and I do see high dehumanization levels between useful idiots on either sides. And I'm here to tell you now that all that did for years on end, even if it made you giggle amongst your friends and it kind of gave you a high and it stroked your ego amongst each other, that you were only playing as a useful pawn in a mass propagandizing psychological warfare tactic for people that see you as a dumb pig as well. So, yeah. All the animals in the farm are equal, but some are more equal than others, right? So yeah, very much, I can tell you right now that's the dehumanization that's occurring right now. Which is characteristic of mass authoritarian systems. So, both Soviets and Nazis. Gotta question and reflect to see, am I a useful idiot that's been playing that game for years now leading up to this? Use that soul time to reflect a little bit. And what other archetype? We have a scribe. A scribe. Preserving knowledge and information, light attribute. Shadow attribute is altering facts and plagiarizing work. Oh. Well, an explosion of things that this indicates comes to mind. It can indicate not only propaganda, that the mass propaganda machines being kicked into high gear and to levels of yellow journalism and falsehood, the likes of which I don't think mankind's seen since World War II, really. I also have heard amongst us truthers that we're all scrambling to save on physical hard drives. Podcasts from people that we know will be the first to have their books burned, as it were. I've been doing that, just the gold mine of knowledge, and not even really so much referring to like QB theories or even conspiracy theories, but even people that are just theologizing or philosophizing about Christianity or even medieval topics that just were never considered okay. They're considered tray by the modern mind. Like, I've been saving this stuff as well. So there's like a madcap rush of people saving information that they know will be relegated to oblivion within the AI censorship systems. There are people that the propaganda machines are going into high gear, as it were, in terms of the information, the disinformation, rather. It's not even so much misinformation anymore. It's very blatant disinformation is going into high gear now. So you have to be very careful. And I do caution and say that if there are people that you blatantly know would be considered tray by this authoritarian system, we do need to be saving their works and transferring them to physical files that you can keep on you. And I did that with one podcast, but I need to go through all these other people and start saving their work somehow. So that is very active right now. Let's see, what else do we have for archetype for the nation? We have the addict. Ooh. Yeah. The light attribute of an addict helps you to recognize and confront addictive behavior. Shadow attribute compromises integrity and honesty, allows an addictive pattern to have authority over your inner spirit. Whew, another really loaded, prominent issue on every level with the American people. And that's kind of the indication I get, is that it's a power struggle over one's inner spirit and free expression. Because we have been doing that authoritarian tiptoe, as it's sometimes called, to where we are now. There's a question of addiction to worldly power and wealth and sheer materialism amongst elites and their little butt boys and spooks that run beneath them and get teeny little morsels of it by working for these people, for one. There's the heroin addiction amongst the lower classes because there is a total loss of perceived power within themselves to have control even over their personal lives. The same with video gamers, people that in their free time, rather than, reading a book and, possibly stumbling into wrongthink with conspiracy theory, alternative history theories, perhaps. All these gentlemen escaped into pornography and video games, and that was their addiction. This coup d'etat, this seizure of authoritarian power, this whoredom to China, and whatever shadowy elites are esoterically veiled by China, as it were. Excuse me. They would not have been able to have structured this coming system without this functioning within the people's psyche into overdrive. If you can divide and conquer to the degree that each person is atomized and totally powerless and brought to their knees, and through education implant in their head that they're powerless, it's just sheer escapism at that point. So that's very telling and very true. Let me see what other archetype we can get. Destroyer. Very self-explanatory. Coincides well with the first Pluto return for America here shortly. Which, of course, Pluto, Scorpio, rules death, major transformation that is irreconcilable once it is complete. A total breakdown of everything down to the elemental level that you thought was real and true and will now be proven to not be so. So, of course, this comes to mind, just the coup d'etat attempt and the elite so much. The lower classes, I think, are becoming aware of this power within themselves too, in a defensive stance. But I hope to God we keep it as a defensive stance. Because that'd be the only way to beat them at that point. And then, of course, a hedonist. Yeah, it's typical of Americans. No real shocker there. Inspires creative energy to embrace the good things in life, celebrates the beauty in yourself for the light attribute. Shadow attribute pursues pleasure to the detriment of health, indulges at the expense of others. I'm fully guilty of this. I am boozing and I'm putting on makeup for only the camera. Complete strangers on the internet that are just going to compare me to a lowly animal, most likely in my looks. But I do it because it's a form of self-care and creative free expression. So yeah, I rarely admit I'm guilty to this. But yeah, it's, if you have, $5 and you're a highly atomized individual and a narcissist in a narcissistic culture where there is no true love and there is no true bliss and there is no true joy, You just kind of glut yourself to get that serotonin pumping. You just kind of glut yourself. I mean, it's, it's fairly logical. Fairly logical, no shock there. It's just not. Now, but I'm kind of worried because what cards are in this deck but the Warrior? Cards conducive to wartime strategy. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a lot of escapism. Now, typically I also pull the Victim archetype card, which of course is the victim mentality that has been instilled within the American people with the SJW politics. It's a strain of a bad, poor mental attitude amongst the American people. I didn't draw it here, but that is another card that I commonly pull when I read for our nation, is the Victim card. So I see a lot of, how do I put it with these cards so far? Escapism, essentially. If it's not through literal, like, drug, hard substances, it's attempts to alter the mind from the dangerous situation we presently find ourselves through either, like, vocalization, like I am just doing this to get blood pumping, and to rally my echo chamber of people, even though they are not strategizing, not praying, not taking anything seriously. We're essentially just a bunch of people that are trying to bolster what's left of our fragile, inflated egos and the death of a narcissistic consumer culture, because we're stupid and we don't know what else the fuck all to do in the face of boots on the ground and heavy artillery everywhere. Let's see. Or at least, in DC. I also have astrology cards. What's going on with the nation with the astrology cards? I think the House of the Mind and Ideas, Gemini. There's debate about whether our country's ruled by Scorpio or Gemini. I personally believe it's Gemini because we are such a info crazy, information, vocalization, vocal, chatty nation. And if, like, extroverts, which are known to be highly sociable, communicative, love to socialize, are the people that get by in this country. And if you're just a normal introvert like yourself, people are like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? Are you mad? And you're like, maybe I like to self-reflect upon my words before I'm verbose and just spewing shit everywhere like everyone else, just spewing bullshit to make me feel active and alive and like I have friends, but that's me. I'm the introvert. So what I'm getting at is it leads me to think that we're very much a Gemini-centered country. So we see the concrete thinking, thoughts, communication, mental agility, and the capacity to relate to the most immediate and daily and social environment like siblings or neighbors. I think that's the correct thing to do for patriots to do, is we need to get local. There needs to be strategies on a local level as well as on the family level, at the micro level. Because this divide and conquer strategy that they initiated within the people went farther down with the introduction of SJW politics, of the question of transgenderism and these deeply psychological identificators and which ones make you feel the best in the moment and will get you social coinage with your other freaks with unnatural hair that are totally mediocre and forgettable. That divide and conquer strategy cut beyond race, creed, sex, and went down to the atom level of the individual, and that really, really, really screwed us over. So with the third house, I think that's something that Americans need to do, is they need to recalibrate psychologically, materially, financially, locally, and also at the familial level, whether that's a soul tribe, which of course the soul tribe within the New Age is not your natural born group, but it's something of a family still within one's soul. But also with families as well, because with the introduction of transgenderism, the divide and conquer strategy cut down to the individual level at that point. What else we got going here? We got Juno, the sacred union. So, especially with QB falling apart and Trump not being that ideal messiah that a lot of people saw him as, there is a question of spiritual fidelity. The idol has been toppled, at which point you turn to the real transcendental source, which is God. So there may be a lot of religious returns like the prodigal son to God and religion occurring right now. The question of whether your union is with those of the worldly sphere or of that transcendental sphere. I certainly hope that we're aiming more toward the transcendental sphere, and the way to do this is through prayer. So again, as with everything else, prayer is the answer. Prayer. We have a waxing crescent. Inspiration, creativity, growth, accomplishments, and learning. Interesting. What am I to make of that? Maybe by widening our horizons, that current circumstantial things happening right now are not all it. It kind of makes us realize that there are higher things and better things, and maybe people are reflecting upon that or reading upon that or going back to the history books or I know not what. But there are people currently contemplating and studying other things as well. And let's get one more card from the astrology deck. We have a waning crescent, surrender, restore, reflection, intuition, and stillness. Look how pretty these cards are, this astro deck. I love this deck in particular because the designs are very simple. Has a nice little hologram. But yeah, waning crescent, surrender, restore, reflection, intuition, and stillness. So I see that as the waning, which of course a waning crescent of the moon is the fullness of the moon is disappearing visibly. And I see that as the waning crescent of this illusion that we had of July 4th going, yay, red, white, and blue, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, when in reality, the way this nation was functioning, they had tossed aside the red, white, and blue and everything it represented within the patriotic spirit decades ago with JFK. Like, when JFK happened and his brains were blown out all over, and, you know, it was his brains blowing out, that was the deep state going, hi, we're here. Hi. Or just letting you know that, you know, we're the big boys, we're the big boss. And that was their way of going, hi kids, as his brains blew out all over creation. Woo, I'm getting a little tipsy. Woo. So the waning crescent, I think Americans are having to face the fact of this comfortable, relatively materialistic, consumerist, comfortable life where you occasionally go, oh, yay, the red, white, and blue, da-da-da-da-da. When meanwhile we lost the plot of what patriotism was decades ago. And then the final nail in the coffin is, of course, the Q movement. They baited us with this intellectual, mental masturbation honeypot of intel, which, don't get it wrong, in a very general sense, they baited us with the partial truth that the currency for these shadowy groups and how they function is children. It's the heart, blood, soul of children. Don't get that wrong. That's a partial truth. But very mystified, very general. Like, how does it operate? Oh, you know. And at that point when they baited you with that, because people have had this notion, if you've been within the conspiracy theory field, that was an understood fact. Like, we don't understand the details. We don't understand the logistics of procuring. We don't understand the ceremonial magic or occult beliefs, perhaps esoteric secrets that these people possess about what they do with children per se. Not exactly, not in the utmost detail that these people would. But there, that's one of the key points of the conspiracy theory worldview, is the currency is children. That's how the power is brokered, is through children. And that's how they baited the QBs. Because it's something that we've intuited, as a card here indicated, it was intuition. We very intuitively, instinctively understand that about worldly power. That it is bloodthirsty, it is psychopathic, it is demonic. It freely gluts on the blood, the flesh, the spirit of pure innocence and openness and receptivity that all children naturally are bestowed with from their Creator. And so that unfortunately entrapped us within that mental, intellectual maze of total collective masturbation that was that honeypot that was QB. And with that, it's now waning though. Like we're hit with the sudden shock of this hard coup d'etat that is unfolding very visibly before us. And it's a shock to the system that these whole images of white hats and black hats and there's spooks that have gone rogue and there's mercs that have gone rogue, and that does happen from what I understand, but it was this story being told like a while, that's what the white and the black hats, they said that's what that comes from, is within Wild Western films, to distinguish the good guy from the bad guy, it was the white versus the black hat with the cowboys. Unfortunately, the world of intelligence and spooks is not that stark. Which is not to say there's not rogue agents, and that's not to say that maybe there were more than usual. But the waning aspect of that crescent moon with the intuition is all of us realizing, oh shoot, we were led into a massive intellectual honey trap, an intellectual mental masturbation honey trap. Which is ingenious, because, when you think of honey traps, it's purely on the sensual level. It's, it's 007, hot chicks, and expensive jewelry and dresses that are the honeypots. But QB was very much that on an intellectual, mental masturbation level. So, and I think that's what the waning aspect is that the American people, because they are so atomized, are so desperate for a group and a cause to rally behind with that patriotic spirit, and unfortunately that was played. They played it. Probably have all those people's IP addresses and information that were on Q-related sites. So, and that's what's waning, is this whole false notion of 5D chess gaming, this Q thing. I think that's quickly waning from the American people's mental mindscape. I think that's pretty much done. And let's see, I also have the tarot over here. I have the tarot. These are Rider-Waite. It's the complementary gold and black, which, let's see. Let's pull some tarot before I end this. So let's see, tarot. Let's see, tarot for the nation. The state of the nation right now, going into its baby's first hard coup d'etat. It's baby's first hard coup d'etat. Aww. Okay, so tarot. Oh, the devil reversed. The beast system. Oh, the majority of Americans, if they weren't consciously hailing Satan, they were unconsciously hailing Satan within their overly gutted consumer hearts. With it reversed, it's being released. So, similar to Juno, which is a question of one sacred union, people are looking at themselves in the mirror and thinking, I've been hailing Satan this entire time. I have been unconsciously hailing the Dark Lord this entire time. And I let him nakedly walk around, gnawing on children, spitting their blood in my face, and I giggled like a small child, and I thought it was ironic and sarcastic and hilarious, and I thought he was the king of black humor. Well, yeah, the reality was prematurely stark about that, and people, instead of hailing him like in Childhood's End, are like, this is not okay. So they're walking away from it, which is what the reversal means. Alright, what's another tarot for the nation? The Knight of Swords reversed. So, Knight of Swords has strong convictions about things, but they may not be well informed like a king or queen. They may not be wise. They may not have understanding. It's like a teenager that has strong convictions, and typically the knight represents people of that age group. So with it reversed, I think, again, there's, again, just a reassessment of our convictions. We have that partial truth. We have the partial truths of the world and how it operates, kind of like a smart teenager does. But, I think we kind of prematurely rushed into it, don't you think? I think so. I think we prematurely rushed into it. Tarot card for Six of Wands reversed. Lots of reversals. Boy, the Patriots thought we had it in the bag, didn't we? I see this as our Patriots card, by the way, in recent reads I've done. Patriots thought they had it in the bag, but they played their cards, got a little too excited, a little too enthused. It also could represent, typically in the Six of Wands, a group of people that are moving forward with the laurel of victory on one wand, are very cohesive in the group's goal and their vision. And this can also represent the fact that any group with the surveillance system set up as such as it is now, there's really not one pure group of anyone. There's infiltrators, there's disinfo agents, there's misinfo agents. So there could be groups of people that are like, oh yes, we're the grassroots, and we have this prevailing higher vision for humanity and our goals. And this is an indication that you may not want to get too cocky and so sure about yourselves, because there are mixed elements within that. And I think people get a little too eager, and they miscalculate when they act as well. Okay, let's see one more tarot card. The Five of Swords reversed. Yeah, there was something of, the swords represent the airy element, which is the realms of, communication, mentality, the intellect, as it were. I see the intellect more like ancient Christianity in the ancient world is. The intellect has more to do with intuition and is more of a spiritual faculty, which puts it more in the realm of fire. But again, mentality, communication, verbal, especially written. There was a group of people that thought they were kind of know-it-alls, as it were, and but unfortunately the other side has gathered their swords, or maybe they are a little too cocky. Maybe they see us walking off in defeat from the Capitol, and they have that smirk like on that guy's face, and they're like, yeah, we bagged this. We got it. We've got the intel, we've got the sources, we have the surveillance. But maybe there's a question that they shouldn't be too hasty either. On both sides, there is a lack of spirituality and a little too much focus on the sensual and material world. And as as within Roman and Orthodox Catholicism, if you indulge this parts of the human body too much, it darkens the intellect. You're no longer enlightened. You're not privy to the Holy Spirit, which is the intuition directly of knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, amongst other gifts, foresight, things like that. So it's kind of like a bunch of blind people that are power hungry and just want more candy than the other, in a candy store squabbling. Except it's being manifested on the level of, chain link fences and tanks and China busting our balls with debt and guillotines and FEMA camps and, I don't know. I'm just sick of it. Like, you hear us psychics and tarot readers, we're like, sick of this bullshit. But yeah, it's, if you were to get something from this reading I just did, just drop the conspiracy stuff and the alternative history. Don't get me wrong, I've loved that stuff since I stumbled upon it when I was 11 years old because I had a paranormal experience and I was trying to research on the web trivia or an explanation for the phenomena I had experienced. And as all things anomalous and abnormal and weird, I sidetracked into conspiracy world, and that's where I started. For me, it was over a decade ago. All that aside, but I think with this reading, what I'm personally seeing is we got to stop the internet and mental stuff. Like, stop debating trivia and mere notions we have of how this underworld works. Stop reading conspiracy theory books. Stop reading alternative history. Grow in your family. Grow in your soul tribe. Grow locally. Arm yourselves. Start practicing defensive strategies, as well as prayer. Begin praying right now, immediately. And I'm telling you right now, I know Orthodox and Catholics are going to know this already. This is who you're going to pray for intercession. Because he is the angel of Israel, and he was the one that led the charge that plunged all these demons that are in these empty meat husks of the Satanist world down here. They will be shaking in their boots if we've got this guy presiding over us and on our side. I'm telling you right now, start praying intercessory prayers to this guy in particular. Pray that his hierarchy of angels come to our aid in all our endeavors against these people, because I'm telling you right now, at its root, it's a spiritual warfare. Which, if you're Christian, you know who has already won. It's Christ. But that doesn't mean you just lay down and get slaughtered either. That doesn't make you Christian. We're all in here to be spiritual warriors. Put on the armor of virtue. Reassess your life. Don't buy into consumerism, materialism, and the cattle feed of the goyim that have been pressed onto us by Satanists. Go straight to prayer. Start praying immediately. Localize, train in guns. Have your family members train in guns. They work in shadowy cabals and gangs. And what is a family but a type of gang? Yeah. Especially in then local communities. It's on the ground defense strategies at this point. On the ground, on the Manifest 3D level, defense strategies of arming yourselves and learning how to fight. Spiritual level, it's all prayer, so go for it. Yep, that's all I got right now. Someone requested a reading. That's what I got. For the longest time, I didn't say anything for a week because I was a little shocked and I was just merely observing things unfold. But now is a good time as ever. I hope that was enjoyable, informative, or maybe gave you some tidbits to possibly mull over. Ta-ta! Have a good night.